Hey, I want to carry on from the last conversation I had with this subjective audience and talk about why we need to be slow maxing, why we need to be taking things much more slowly in terms of expectation, I think, because I can see how much that can be taken out of context. I think we have gotten to a point where we think as a society we need to be doing everything we can all the time. And so this becomes a pursuit. And by doing that, we don't do everything we can, because one of the things that we leave out is doing nothing. We leave that out of the equation, so then we don't do everything. We end up not doing some things, and some of those things are really important. And you can see this in studies nowadays. People are trying to talk about it. People are trying to prove that we are becoming more unhappy, and we are becoming also quite disillusioned. We are not really believing in unity and in harmony. We're not believing in community. We're not believing in higher self. We're not believing that, as almost all the scriptures put it, you can quote me on this, whatever, that there is no God within us, and there is no self. This is a delusion that we're making, and clearly, because we are a self. We are, the person saying this is a thought. And see, one of the ironic parts of this is that there seems to be a culture of only being part of the self, only understanding that it is the self that is the perceiver of all. And in Japan, for example, and in China, parts of China where they celebrate Buddhism, they put their hands together and they bow. They honor the self that is the person they are bowing to, and them. By putting their hands together, they acknowledge that these are just two selves, and there should be honor that is in it. It should not be some rejection of how much power the self really has, because ultimately we think that we just have power over ourselves, and the only people that we control in our lives is ourselves. And that's just not true, because it goes both ways. We have the power to control others, and people have the power to control us. And we are a result of that. It's also in science of nature and nurture. It always goes both ways. And this is just, funnily enough, I think what ties in to Zen Buddhism, which is this yin and the yang, the yin yang. And it's supposed to portray that even in the pool of chaos, there exists the component of order that drives it. And even within the pool of order, of just almost seemingly constant order, there is at its root chaos, a chaos. And it would be wrong to assume that they even control each other. because they do, and they also do not. They do by chasing the other, but they also do not by running away from the other. So there is that to be said. And I think when I say we should be taking things slowly, I mean it in a very impatient way. Like, we absolutely must do this. And we must immediately stop what we are doing. This very video could carry with it an expectation that once it is finished, it will have a sort of impact on those who watch it. And when I say a sort of impact, I mean it in like a delusion, like a self-delusion sense, that I thought it would have a ordered sort of impact, but it has also this reality that is chaotic, and it will not be that way, but it is exactly as it should have been, but not just according to myself, but also according to the world. And if I'm not aware of how the world is, and I only listen to myself, then I enter a chaos, because I myself am trying so hard to be order and surround myself with order and expectation, that I end up emitting a chaos. I think one of the great ironies of the 20th century is that through Adolf Hitler, we can understand that no matter how much you try to make people believe what you think, you end up killing yourself. And I don't mean this like, oh, that's what he inevitably did. I mean, there was a part of him that was for good, and he took that so seriously that he was only someone that was to do good, to bring about goodness in order to fix the chaos that was out there, because he believed, well, if I'm good, I need to make the whole world good, because the whole world is in chaos. And his attempts to create this utopia so ironically created a dystopia for those impacted by his change. And I think it goes to show it's not like he was, like Leopold III, where it was about, like his vision was about his power, about his right to rule. I think Stalin also, and Pol Pot, and Mao Zedong, Mao Zedong, also very similarly to Hitler, but you could see much more of like a spiritual Volkgeist sense in Hitler. He definitely fell into the illusion that he was a dictator for good, and he knew what he was doing right, because then he would not have made his mission to so strongly eradicate life, which almost like in its chaotic sense has every right to be. And it's so interesting how controversial he has become as a figure, because we kind of look at ourselves and we think that only someone like him could be the real definition of hatred and just like evil, because we as a society have come to agree that the opposite of good is evil. So if someone goes into this delusion of trying to do the good thing, which is bring about order, he inevitably creates chaos. And he creates chaos for everyone that is not share the same vision as him. And ultimately, this pursuit is done with the intention of good. It's always done as like the ends justify the means. And now we seem to have dehumanized him to the point where we believe by doing so we can separate ourselves from ever doing such a thing. The problem with that is we are quite certain already, at least I am, that Adolf Hitler did not grasp the laws of nature and his pursuit to manifest his own belief of what life should be over life itself is only a sign of ignorance and delusion. So he did not know what he did wrong. So the problem with dehumanizing Hitler just so that you can say you will never do what he did is essentially following into that pursuit that he had, that he did not want to he would have not wanted to do had he known it was not necessary. He was not this evil like spirit. He was the perfect archetypal representation of self-righteousness. And the fact that he had his actions became so consequential and horrific were because, in fact, he was not really this person with ideas that were so grandiose of changing the world that they became bigger than him, or that he became bigger than it, and then he ends up being killed out of fear of being interpreted as a god or some deity or some messiah. It's that he tried to become bigger than the idea of peace. He tried to be the bigger concept, so therefore he could have control over that peace, so that he can decide, well, I don't like this current peace, so I'm going to cause war to bring about change, to bring about another peace. And yeah, it's so funny to me now. And that's funny is such a, for lack of a better word, that the fear of being acknowledged as the worst person alive can cause people to do some pretty evil things. And it's this denial, and it's this denial of who you really are that makes you want to do the right thing to the worst degree. I think going back to slow maxing, I think it can be the result of my circumstance, sure, but that does not mean I should try and change my circumstance. And I certainly don't wish to force people to either choose this or die because your ignorance has no place in my world kind of attitude. But in fact, the opposite. If it would be without your misunderstanding that I ever had the chance to understand myself. It is only because I've seen people suffer that I understand how I also suffer. So making other people suffer would just make me suffer either way. I think that's how it is for everyone. I don't think it's that bizarre that one of the most horrific people in the world, who tried to bring about the most order and tried to be the most, I guess, superior, was someone who was an anti-Semite. I think there was a connection that he wished to almost not only prove, but he wished to get rid of. And he wanted to get rid of the connection that Jewish people had with being almost these culturally and historically middlemen, kind of nomadic and exclusive religion that was also a bit discriminatory on other religions. Quite a bit. I say a bit just because I wish to be a little bit sensitive with this topic. Because it's a slippery slope. You tie in the fact that their belief system or their norms have been mainly to influence masses that are not of their own, so that they can be accepted and safe. And I think people have felt like doing this has had consequences, not just for them, but for Jewish people. So then, for me, it doesn't feel like I'm trying to be anti-Semitic by saying that they have this problem, but rather I'm trying to be a bit aware of the fact that their beliefs are built upon the prejudices and discrimination that they faced from other religions. And I don't say other religions in terms of the beliefs of the religions, but rather the Hitlers of those religions, like the self-righteous people. And then, every religion has their own kind of Hitler, their own little self-righteous, like, do-gooder who ends up thinking that they don't have to be doubted and they don't have to be ignored, because everything they say is the utmost truth and it doesn't ever need second guessing. They're like perfect humans, and they get so mystified in this spirit of being like a prophet that they don't realize that in the reality of the world, you never stay up. It's always ups and downs. And you can be at the very, very, very top and like reach peak humanity, but like that obviously has to then insinuate you go down. And that's not like in a reincarnation sense where like at the end of your life, at your funeral, that's your peak. It's meant to be in the sense of when you realize that that is who you are, and you realize that you are at that peak, then everything after that is like a delusion. It's like the inevitable fall. You get too close to the sun, you realize how close you are to the sun, the sun, the blah blah, metaphors. And this is about symbolism that I'm talking about too. It's just about using the symbolisms of religions to help you understand, even though there's super huge misinterpretations, they still come from words, and words are like the thing we have used to survive. So you just have to be careful of the words, of like what they mean to other people, what you've heard that other people mean to it, and then like you just have to keep learning what they mean to you. You have to always be learning what your words mean to you. Perhaps actions speak louder than words. So for the sake of not being so loud, I will try and go back to what we were talking about. I guess let's have a redoing of this scenario. Again, this explanation as to what ultimately is you. And it's this continuous realization that your expectations are wrong. So you should not just so quickly jump into things and not second guess and not stop to maybe restart. If we can get rid of the fear of like death ourselves, the other fear that we have is the inevitable death of everything that we've worked for. So if we can just realize that we have probably gone through this cycle, not even we, but another concept of consciousness and like species has gone through this cycle and most likely gone extinct. And whether or not they may be traces of those consciousnesses and other species on our Earth and their attempt to evolve, I think we can ultimately agree in this present that the thing that is becoming our great filter, our like our crossroad of whether we succeed as a species, and I say succeed and I mean like are able to live in complete harmony and in complete harmony with the things around us that have kept us alive, not like destroying it. I think we are at that crossroad where we're aware of that, and we have to decide whether we are gonna actually do it or not, like whether we care enough about our species or not, or like whether we've just like unfortunately just broken apart and like hate each other because of like what we've designed for each other and just a lack of love. that we have for each other. We just ultimately decide it's not really worth it. Like, fuck these people. And then, you know, that's the tragic end of our species. But if we were to actually like keep our species alive, even if that means we have to restart, and you know, because when I say restart, I could also think of it like an argument. You know, if you're having an argument with someone, you realize, oh, I'm arguing with them out of anger, so everything we've been saying is just built up emotion. Why don't we just restart and like try to have like, if we want to have a conversation about something, do it in a completely different way. So I say restart because we have so much fucking time. Like, we've got ages. We've got more time ahead of us than we have behind us. And by so many years that we can't even quantify. If we could put the existence of the universe since the Big Bang on a calendar, a 12-month calendar, and it reaches up until now in its very present day, if we could turn that down like into 12 months, I think the period in which civilization has been a recognizable theme would have amounted to the last 0.3 seconds in the last day of the last month of the year. So we have fucking time. Like, we have that much amount of time ahead of us, tenfold. We have the 12 months and whatever else we can quantify is going to happen. So we can either continue this evolution with the same calendar, being like, okay, well, you know, new month, I guess, like new shit. And this is with this like ignorance that I have, that I just accept the 12-month calendar as a concept. Don't know how I feel about it, but you know, whatever. I guess we'll come to a conclusion in the future about a better way to like change our perception of time, of elements, especially because our planet is changing too. So we have to maybe understand how to work with the different climates of our planet now as a society. Yeah. But we've got time. We've got a lot of time. So it would be a waste of time to let our extinction die along with everything we know. Maybe not a waste though. You know, I don't have this like fear that another species will evolve beyond us. In fact, I'm grateful that there could be that capacity if we don't like completely destroy the earth and make it just like impossible to be inhabited on, which I'm afraid to say we're also doing as well, contrary to everyone's belief that like it'll just be a bit difficult. Like, you know, it'll be a bit difficult and then it gets so extreme that like we destroy everything and then we die, or we have to leave the planet and then we die because we don't have the ability to be sustained anymore. We're actually kind of like a fungus or a virus or a leech. Just sucking up the earth and then multiplying. yeah, all that, like, reproduction, reproduce. Like, I get it, birth control is fucking terrible as well, and so is abortion. But like, I mean it in like the health sense, not like in the moral sense. Like, fuck the morality. Like, just like what's good for us as humans. Like, I think just the fact that like we've come up with it as an idea, we've just been like turning it into an industry now, another commodity. It's like, even the things that we are becoming advanced and technologically capable of doing, we add it into this just market of industry of what we're doing. And then there's also these just people who never seen it before, this concept, and they hate the idea of breaking the morality. But it's not that they even really care for the people. They just like the people that are doing it. They don't care about those people that are doing it. These traditional people, they just care about those people breaking their faith and like their traditions. They don't actually care about the consequences of those people who are breaking them. And that's the problem with like conservatives and traditionalists, is that their fear is that their system will be broken and they'll have to live with all the rest of the monkeys and the primates. Yeah, that was a little bit emotionally driven as a comment. It's a shame I can't go back and explain it in better words. But I think they don't even care about the fact that this is also a health problem, and it's also causing huge problems for women health-wise. It's also causing problems for other people who now start to take in the chemicals from birth control. But yeah, I don't think that's the solution to this huge, population crisis. Because I think deep down it's just like people just want more people so that people work more. And I think it's great that we have this many people that we can all help each other, but like no one's helping each other, and we're so many people, and like we're not like, how many are we? How many people are we? Like, can you even quantify how many people we are? And just for like us to like not even give a shit about each other. It's not even like we're at an advanced species. We're just super lucky to be on this huge fucking rock, and we're just like composed of our own nature to like leech off of it. And we like kind of look at each other like fucking, like idiots. Like we've developed a new form of like being a primate. It's not like we're some advanced consciousness either, I'm pretty sure like Neanderthals and primates also had their own consciousness. It's just like now we have another form of it, but we're still unaware of how like fucking primitive we are. Yeah. Speaking of, like, transportation There's another thing that also really bugs me, which is so on the topic too. It's like, bro, it's like our existence consists of space and time, and we also have, as a species, have kind of convoluted with this notion of like self-satisfactory, that we've just tried to eliminate those concepts from our perception. So everything is sped up, you know? The faster the better. You can go across the world to a completely different environment on this huge rock in a couple of hours. Completely different culture, completely different tradition, completely different way of life, but you know, they've got a fucking McDonald's there because like this thing is also like leaching into the lifestyles of people and eroding their culture, and this whole shortening of the distance, the shrinking world. It just kind of, it just really creates this illusion that everything is the same, because like we are all on the same planet. And it's just like the attempts of destroying space and time create a delusion, because we can't really destroy it, so we are kind of like in like a deep trance, in this kind of like this just like floating on a cloud, just like, but almost like with so much certainty that it's not just made of water and that it falls and that you will fall. Yeah, and then it's, you know, it's no wonder that this thing has been commodified so much that it's also just caused a pollution and complete disregard for the environment, because it was already disregarding the environment in the first place. Oh, you know, fuck all the distance and all the, you know, just like requirement of having to move from one place to another. I'm just going to buy my own little thing that I didn't even make, and consists of just metals of the earth and also just this fuel, and I'm just gonna, you know, drive myself. And like I could understand like trains or boats, because they kind of take in this aspect that like you are using this like a group of people to manage this like little vessel. It almost feels like another body. But with these fucking cars, it just feels like you have no regard for anybody but yourself, because all you're focused on is your body in this little 2-ton vehicle. It's all you are doing to yourself to transport, and it's not like you have any relationship with the car besides the fact that you bought it and you like it. And now I'm realizing why there's such a huge culture of cars, because it's like cars get you places, so you know you're obviously gonna have a relationship with it. But it just feels a little bit dissociative. It feels really dissociative, because what about your relationship with like human beings? What about your relationship with the earth? What about your relationship with like interacting with like a with the earth and people. Yeah. I think taxis are an interesting service. I really respect taxi services. I've always wondered about the beautiful journey that can be had by taking specific people and just driving them places. Yeah, taxis are cool. I like taxis. Very beautiful concept. But and even buses are pretty cool too. But it just like all these cars, what a waste. What a fucking waste. And you can't even argue with me that it's anything but just that feeling of ownership, of having your own representation of yourself, which is you don't want to represent yourself with other people. You want to be representative of this, of a certain watch, of a certain car, of a certain type of house. And it just leads me to believe that in many ways, art and creativity has been marketalized for our comfort. Art is supposed to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And if you never want to be disturbed, and all you want is this beautiful lavishness, but you also want it to mean something to you, you're being comforted by comfort. And that is disturbing to me. Because you don't wish to interact with art. You don't really find the beauty in it. You just find the success in it. You find the satisfaction. I sometimes love when I can make points across. I consider communication in art as well. But it's always followed by a form of despair that, although I'm satisfied and happy about what I've managed to express in my art, in my communication, in my language, in my poetry, I always see in hindsight a sense of delusion. And it's not something I wish to say should be priced or made. It's not like I want to turn my delusions into an art that makes me money, because then I'm going to purposefully enter delusions that I think would grant me money. Like rap. African American rappers talking about the struggle while single-handedly being unaware that they're also victims of it and they're products of it. And then no matter how hard they try to talk about the truth, they're free to speak the truth because they've got money now. They don't have to worry about what the truth actually will do to them in their life, and what they actually have to show as the truth. And what are you gonna do with that money now? Complaining about how people don't help you and then not helping other people. What are you gonna do to those who used to prosecute your people? Are you gonna support their behavior now because now they don't see you as a threat? You should give to those who suffer at the hands of society, even if they're scamming you, because their ignorance and their behavior is justified by ignorance. Ignorance justifies itself. And for you to be this kind of condemner of what this person deserves because of their behavior, it's like to say that it's all their fault and that they should know better. But the reason they're there is because they didn't know any better. The reason anyone's anywhere is because they don't know any better.